Today, I want to talk to you about a moment, not just in markets, but in our shared economic journey. A moment so significant that it forces every investor, thinker, and citizen to ask themselves a simple but powerful question. Are we ready for the next paradigm shift? Because with the recent US raid in Venezuela and its shockwaves across global markets, we are standing at the edge of transformation that could redefine currency, confidence, and value itself. The recent US raid in Venezuela sent immediate shockwaves across global financial markets, highlighting a fundamental truth about modern economics. Geopolitical events can instantly destabilize currencies and trigger widespread investor panic. When a nation like Venezuela, rich in natural resources yet politically volatile, becomes the center of international military intervention, the ripple effects are felt not just regionally, but across the global monetary system. Investors instinctively reassess risk, questioning the reliability of fiat currencies and the stability of conventional financial instruments. Imagine waking up to headlines that a major oil exporting nation is under sudden foreign intervention, and the immediate questions that arise: how secure are dollar-backed assets? Will energy supply chains be disrupted? Where should wealth be preserved if conventional markets start to falter? These are the questions driving investor behavior in real time, and history shows that such moments of uncertainty can accelerate the flow of capital into tangible assets like gold and silver, where intrinsic value is guaranteed regardless of political instability. The Venezuela raid also serves as a powerful case study in how investor psychology amplifies market movements. It is not only the economic fundamentals that drive price swings, but also the perception of risk. When headlines indicate political upheaval in a nation that holds significant commodities reserves, even distant markets react preemptively. The dollar, often perceived as a symbol of global stability, faces scrutiny as investors consider potential exposure to systemic shocks. This heightened awareness forces portfolio managers, hedge funds, and even retail investors to seek assets that are insulated from sudden currency volatility. The urgency created by such geopolitical interventions often leads to sharp inflows into silver, a metal that historically acts as a buffer during periods of economic stress. Hooking the audience further, one must consider the long-term implications. Geopolitical crises are rarely isolated incidents. They reveal structural vulnerabilities in the global financial system, where currency dominance can be challenged in unexpected ways. Every military intervention, trade embargo, or sudden policy shift has the potential to disrupt confidence in fiat currencies. And savvy investors recognize that tangible assets like silver are not speculative luxuries but strategic necessities. The Venezuela raid is a real-time reminder that the interplay between politics and economics is immediate and consequential. And understanding these dynamics allows investors to anticipate shifts in market behavior before prices fully adjust. As the global financial landscape faces unprecedented shocks, the declining confidence in the US dollar has emerged as a central theme shaping investor behavior and asset allocation. The dollar, long regarded as the cornerstone of international trade and reserves, is now experiencing mounting pressure from both geopolitical tensions and macroeconomic imbalances. When a major event like the US raid in Venezuela occurs, it acts as a catalyst, forcing investors to reevaluate the reliability of fiat currencies as a store of value. The sudden destabilization triggers questions that keep economists, traders, and policymakers awake at night. If the world's reserve currency shows vulnerability, where does real wealth reside? Which assets can withstand the turbulence of political upheaval, currency devaluation, and global supply shocks? These questions are not rhetorical. They are the driving force behind the rush toward tangible assets like silver, which offers both intrinsic worth and psychological security in times of uncertainty. What makes silver particularly compelling in this environment is its dual role as a safe haven investment and an industrial metal. Unlike fiat currency, which loses purchasing power through inflation or erodes during systemic crises, silver is immune to policy missteps and monetary overreach. When confidence in the dollar wavers, investors instinctively seek assets that are universally recognized for their value, liquidity, and permanence. This behavior is amplified when markets perceive that traditional financial safety nets, such as bonds or dollar-denominated assets, may not perform as expected. Every headline about rising geopolitical tensions, sanctions, or fiscal instability serves as a wake-up call, prompting a shift in capital toward tangible holdings that maintain intrinsic worth, irrespective of paper currency fluctuations. The psychological dimension cannot be overstated. Humans have a natural tendency to seek refuge in assets that are physically real and historically proven. particularly when abstract financial instruments appear fragile. Silver's enduring presence across centuries as a medium of wealth preservation makes it uniquely positioned to absorb capital fleeing weakening fiat currencies. The interplay between fear and foresight generates a powerful momentum. As more investors recognize the risks associated with a declining dollar, demand for silver accelerates, creating a self-reinforcing upward pressure on prices. Hooking the audience further, this is not simply speculation, it is strategic positioning based on observable shifts in global confidence, supply-demand dynamics, and macroeconomic trends, all converging to signal that silver's value is poised for extraordinary appreciation. The dynamics of the silver market today are being profoundly shaped by a critical supply-demand imbalance, a factor that increasingly signals a dramatic rise in prices. Industrial demand for silver is surging, driven by its indispensable role in electronics, renewable energy, medical technology, and high-precision manufacturing, yet global mining output cannot keep pace. Unlike paper currencies, which can be created at the discretion of central banks, silver is a finite resource, constrained by geological availability and extraction costs. The moment investors begin to recognize this scarcity, the market reacts sharply, often faster than traditional analysts anticipate. Picture a scenario where industries require more silver than is available in circulation, while investors simultaneously flock to the metal as a hedge against weakening fiat currencies. The resulting tension is not theoretical, it is imminent. The hooks of this scenario are evident. Every geopolitical shock, trade embargo, or economic sanction amplifies the pressure on both supply and demand. Venezuela, one of the world's significant silver-producing nations, exemplifies this perfectly. When political instability restricts production or export, the global silver supply tightens further, creating upward pressure on prices even before industrial or investment demand fully adjusts. Meanwhile, advanced technologies are increasingly reliant on silver's unique properties. Its exceptional conductivity and reflectivity make it irreplaceable in solar panels, electric vehicles, and sophisticated electronics. As industries expand their use, the metal becomes simultaneously more scarce and more valuable, a rare convergence that historically precedes explosive price movements. Investor behavior compounds this effect, observing geopolitical disruptions and dwindling supply, and market participants accelerate accumulation of physical silver, ETFs, and futures contracts. Each purchase reduces available inventory, reinforcing scarcity and intensifying price momentum. The combination of industrial utility, limited supply, and rising investment demand creates a perfect storm of market dynamics that cannot be ignored. Economists and analysts now highlight that even moderate increases in demand can have outsized effects on price when supply is constrained, a phenomenon clearly visible in historical commodity cycles. The psychological element also fuels this imbalance. Investors recognize that unlike volatile paper assets, silver is tangible, durable, and universally recognized for its value as trust in fiat currencies erodes. Physical holdings gain appeal not only as protection but as strategic positioning. This convergence of scarcity, rising industrial need, and shifting market sentiment ensures that the stage is set for substantial upward movement in silver prices. Observers who fail to see this are ignoring the structural realities of supply and demand, where the very limitations of the physical market transform silver from a passive commodity into a potentially explosive asset. When markets face uncertainty, one of the most powerful drivers of asset prices is safe haven demand, and silver is emerging as a prime beneficiary. The recent geopolitical events, including the U.S. raid in Venezuela, have exposed vulnerabilities in conventional financial systems, prompting investors to seek assets that offer stability amid chaos. Safe haven buying is not a matter of speculation alone. It is a behavioral response to perceived risk, where investors instinctively shift capital toward assets that retain intrinsic value when confidence in fiat currencies wavers. Imagine millions of investors simultaneously evaluating the security of their dollar holdings, watching headlines of disrupted oil flows and political upheaval, and realizing that tangible metals provide a buffer. Against the uncertainty, this collective action has a compounding effect, driving silver prices upward in ways that traditional economic models cannot fully predict. Silver's appeal as a safe haven is magnified by its dual nature. It is both a commodity with essential industrial uses and a store of value recognized globally. Unlike paper instruments, whose worth depends on the solvency of governments or institutions, silver's value is inherent. Every ounce physically held represents security, liquidity, and long-term purchasing power. This intrinsic worth becomes a magnet in times of crisis, drawing investors from all corners of the market and creating accelerated price discovery. The hooks here are clear. Every geopolitical event, economic disruption, or policy uncertainty triggers heightened demand for silver, and as more market participants rush to secure physical holdings or related financial instruments, a self-reinforcing cycle emerges, propelling prices higher at a pace that catches many by surprise. The psychology behind safe haven behavior also intensifies the effect. Investors are driven not only by rational calculations, but by collective sentiment. Fear of missing out on preserving wealth drives rapid accumulation, while uncertainty about the future of fiat currencies fuels urgency. Historical patterns show that metals like silver outperform in crises precisely because human behavior consistently favors tangible value during periods of financial instability. This makes silver both a strategic investment and a societal barometer, reflecting the level of confidence in global monetary systems. Adding another layer to this dynamic, institutional actors are increasingly participating in the safe haven rush, and hedge funds, ETFs, and sovereign wealth portfolios are diversifying into silver to hedge against dollar weakness and geopolitical risk, creating unprecedented demand on limited supply. The convergence of retail urgency, institutional strategy, and industrial necessity creates a market where momentum builds exponentially, making price surges almost inevitable as risk awareness spreads. Observers who underestimate the magnitude of safe haven demand fail to grasp the profound influence of investor psychology on tangible assets during times of global uncertainty. History offers some of the clearest lessons in finance, and nowhere is this more evident than in the performance of precious metals during crises, with silver consistently emerging as a resilient store of value. When traditional currencies falter or political upheavals shake confidence in markets, silver does not merely survive, it often outperforms expectations, creating opportunities for those who recognize its strategic significance early. Consider the patterns following past geopolitical disruptions, financial collapses, or periods of inflation. Silver consistently responds with accelerated demand and rising prices, reflecting its dual role as both a hedge and a tangible asset. The hook here is that these historical precedents are not distant anomalies, they are predictive signals for the present moment, illustrating that the dynamics driving $200 silver are rooted not in speculation, but in observable, repeatable patterns of human behavior and market response. The Venezuela raid provides a modern context that mirrors these historical trends. By destabilizing a nation with critical resources, the event has shaken global investor confidence, reminding the market that fiat currencies are vulnerable to external shocks. When traditional assets such as bonds, equities, or dollar-denominated reserves appear risky, investors naturally gravitate toward assets with enduring value, and silver fulfills that role with remarkable consistency. Moreover, silver's historical resilience enhances its psychological appeal. Investors do not simply buy silver because it is scarce. They buy it because past experience demonstrates that it protects wealth. When fiat currencies lose purchasing power, this creates a feedback loop where confidence in silver as a crisis hedge increases demand, driving prices higher and validating the original strategy. Institutional investors have taken note, incorporating silver into portfolios as a strategic counterbalance to currency risk, which amplifies the upward momentum further. What makes this moment particularly compelling is a convergence of multiple historical signals with current geopolitical realities. The lessons of the past, combined with the immediate pressures on supply and rising industrial needs and safe haven demand, create conditions where the price trajectory of silver is no longer theoretical. It is grounded in historical evidence, reinforced by present-day market behavior, and magnified by collective investor psychology. Observing these patterns, it becomes clear that the forces driving silver's ascent are as inevitable as the cycles of history itself, with every crisis offering an opportunity for those prepared to act strategically and decisively to scarcity. Coupled with industrial and investment demand, ensures that price movements are not solely speculative but grounded in tangible economic fundamentals. The hooks embedded in this scenario are striking, as historical crises show. Moments of uncertainty act as accelerants, amplifying the natural upward trajectory of metals that combine scarcity with practical utility. Silver's value is reinforced not only by market dynamics and investor sentiment, but also by its irreplaceable industrial utility, which adds a structural foundation to its price growth. Unlike gold, which is primarily a store of wealth, silver is woven into the fabric of modern technology, energy solutions, and healthcare innovations. Every solar panel installed, Every electric vehicle produced and every high-tech medical device manufactured requires measurable amounts of silver. This dual demand, industrial use combined with investment appeal, creates a built-in floor for prices, ensuring that even when speculative activity fluctuates, the metal retains fundamental value. Imagine a world transitioning to renewable energy at an accelerated pace, while global confidence in fiat currencies wavers. Silver becomes not just an optional investment, but a strategic asset, essential to both industry and wealth preservation. And that makes its upward trajectory nearly unstoppable. The hooks here lie in the interplay between supply constraints and escalating industrial demand. Mining output is finite, exploration is costly, and geopolitical instability, such as the Venezuela raid, can interrupt the flow of silver to global markets. Meanwhile, technological adoption accelerates consumption, and emerging industries in electronics and clean energy drive demand to unprecedented levels. Every ounce of silver extracted must satisfy multiple competing forces: industrial requirements, safe haven accumulation, and strategic reserves held by sovereign funds, creating a scarcity-driven dynamic that magnifies price appreciation. Investors who recognize this convergence understand that silver is not just reacting to short-term market fluctuations. It is fundamentally positioned for long-term structural growth. The psychological appeal of silver complements its industrial importance. Investors are increasingly aware that holding tangible assets with inherent utility provides a hedge against both economic and technological uncertainty. The metal's dual nature amplifies its desirability. It is not merely a commodity, but a critical tool in global infrastructure, a hedge against currency instability, and a symbol of enduring wealth. This combination of tangible value and practical necessity reinforces confidence in silver as a strategic investment during periods of market disruption, amplifying demand across retail, institutional, and industrial sectors simultaneously. What makes this moment compelling is the perfect storm of rising industrial adoption, finite supply, and macroeconomic pressures on fiat currencies. Silver's practical applications ensure it cannot be ignored. While market psychology guarantees heightened demand during periods of uncertainty, observers who fail to see this interplay are overlooking a unique convergence of factors that not only supports higher valuations but also accelerates the likelihood of dramatic price movements. The structural and psychological forces behind silver's ascent intertwine, creating conditions where the metal's long-term value is anchored in both necessity and perception, making $200 per ounce not just a possibility, but a market outcome increasingly written into the dynamics of supply, demand, and investor foresight. So here's your call to action. Open your mind to the possibility that the old rules are changing. Don't be a passive observer, be a student of this unfolding story. Educate yourself on how global events shape currency flows, understand why, in moments of crisis and uncertainty, silver, humble, essential, and everlasting, becomes a beacon of value. Recognize that $200 silver isn't flashy optimism. It's grounded in supply constraints, industrial demand, investor psychology, and yes, shifting trust.